Welcome to my basement, everybody. We have an incredible episode for you, a very special one, and it's tied to the relaunch of the classic episodes of The Electric Playground, where if you're listening to this, you can watch those classic episodes on youtube.com/EPNTV. My old friend Chris Taylor is here, and old is not an operative word here. We go back. Chris and I go back honestly, to the very first episode of EP. And so you can consider this kind of like a where are they now update on some familiar faces that you will see throughout Electric Playground's history. And Chris Taylor is here. How are you, my friend? It's been way too long. This is way overdue. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here and chatting with you, catching up, reminiscing. I did just watch that old episode where I look
Yes.
like I'm 12. Thanks for that, by the way. I don't know what happened. I want to speak to management right after this, okay? 'Cause I have something I need to say.
It was
So,
like
yeah.
this too, right? That was
Oh,
like 5 seconds ago. I was visiting you guys at Cave Dog and meeting everybody. Everybody was so hyped up and into it. You were building Total Annihilation. I have to tell you something though before we get into this and catch up on everything. That interview with you sold it to me. When we
mm,
were in the editing suite and we were putting it together, because that was our first episode. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We didn't know where this was going to go. You know, we barely got on TV. But when I was editing that clip, or I was sitting behind the editor editing that clip, and watching you converse with me and how comfortable you were and how funny you were and how charming you were, I'm like, the world needs to see people like this. This is
mm.
absolutely going to work. This guy is brilliant and creative and funny. And the world ain't ready for how awesome the video game industry is. And boy, did that turn out to be true. And I don't know if I've said that to you before, but thank you because you really underlined why the hell we were all doing this and why we were putting so much effort and determination into visiting companies and visiting with people like yourself. But you really sold it to me, and then you sold it to our audience, which was amazing. So welcome back.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those kind words. Of course, we don't know it's happening while it's happening, right? There's a
Absolutely, yeah.
weird thing that is inexplicable there. That was 27 years ago.
Yeah.
And I want to point something out to you. You say that was your first episode. You say you didn't quite know, you were getting a feel for how the whole thing worked. I would never have known that. You guys were pros from the minute you walked in the door. And when I watched it, I never went, huh, that's pretty good. But that's the first time out of the gate with, I never, there was no asterisk. There was no caveat, about that episode. That episode was pro level stuff end to end. You and Tommy, you guys nailed that. And I tell you, I've never reversed that thought. Even when I watched the clip again, it just came off like hey, yeah, that's a pro
Like we've
level
been doing
job.
it for a while. I
Yeah,
have
like you've
this
been doing.
theory. I have this theory about entertainment, and this applies to video games too all the time. That the stuff that resonates and kind of rings a bell, that sort of ripples across time, it, like is always there. Has always been there. It just had to be chiseled and found and discovered. And I kind of, I mean, it sounds so arrogant to say that about EP, but please, if you hear this, know that it's because of all of our collective work, all of our collaboration and every piece in there. It wasn't just something that I concocted in my brain and it was there forever. But when we put it together, I've felt that over the time that it was always there. It was supposed to be there, and I certainly felt that when I reflect on, like, we had almost 20 years on television, which is really hard for any show to do. But you know what it was? It was a necessity. It needed to happen. That's how I pitched it. I'd never produced anything before, but that's how I pitched it. It's like, how can we have 30 magazines a month about this industry and no show goes and visits these people and talks to them and gets, a little inside information about how this stuff gets made? We have to change that. And people could see the reasoning behind that. They could see the logic behind it, and they supported us, and they gave us the money and they let us do it.
Yeah, I totally see that now, but I didn't see it then.
Mm,
Magazines were it was all about the magazine. I mean,
it
talking about
was.
before, right? It was
Yeah.
you'd go into a shop, you'd see the magazines, you'd read the article, and the magazine editors. I mean, they were like Johnny Wilson. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a joke when you were at GDC and you saw Johnny Wilson walk by. He was like, the I don't know, he was the man
Yeah.
because you needed that guy to like what you were doing to get your game out in front of the world. If you didn't have that, then you were really fighting an uphill battle. So that's a really, really profoundly insightful thing to reflect upon. Here we are, 27 years later.
I had such a because we were singular. There was no other show like EP, right? And I remember going to Nintendo of America and I could hear some of the magazine editors like saying, "Who the hell are those guys?" Because we would have people like Peter Main and some of the bigwigs at Nintendo or whatever want to go off and we'd get a special interview section because we were on television. And the sort of traditional press was watching all of this fawning that was happening with our group, and they were like, "Who are these guys? Who the hell are these guys?" And I could still hear that
Yeah.
resonating across the room.
What a crazy idea. A visual medium and a
On TV, yes.
I mean, now it seems like anything, it seems really obvious, but
Yeah.
back then you were a pioneer and you were the Lewis and Clark, of bringing video games to video or some
It
equivalently
was the
bizarre
people, though,
metaphor.
man. It was the people, and I don't know if you know, but certainly the viewers of EP know. But last year, I did a deal with the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and because I've been on this sort of crossroads of like, what do I do? Do I just focus on what we did and spend all my days digitizing and archiving all of that material? Do I find partners to help me do that? Well, I found a partner, and the University of Toronto, Mississauga is digitizing our entire archive, and they've got a game studies program out there. And
Mm.
so they've acquired the rights to share all of this content, all of these interviews, all the raw footage is still there, by the way. So they're going to digitize all of the classic episodes, but then all of the raw interviews and all that stuff too. And remember, like our interview ended up being 3 minutes in the show, but we talked for a good 15 or 20 minutes
Oh boy.
for our conversation. So all of that stuff with everybody that we visited is there. And that was an amazing acknowledgement of the worth and the value of what we endeavor to do to get out and meet people and put all of that stuff to tape. And but it's a big job. It's going to take years to digitize it, disseminate it to the students, and then bring it back to me so I can share it with everybody. And so I've committed to every Saturday morning, we're just going to pop new episodes up and kind of share them and get in the chat room and talk with people that are, watching this for the first time or watching this for the 100th time or whatever. And it's going to be fun to kind of celebrate all of these episodes as we go. And so the school not only acquired the rights for their students to our content, but also there's this gentleman named Sid Bolton who is based in Canada who passed away, and he had acquired the biggest collection of video game software in the world, and he had a huge museum in Ontario, and so they acquired all of that too. So now the University of Toronto Mississauga has this massive media archive of games, physical games, and all of the physical tapes that EP collected over almost 30 years, which is
Wow.
amazing gift. And so who knows where all of that leads? I don't know where all of this leads. All I know is that I'm happy that it has led to this for us to
Yeah.
have this conversation. So prior to Cave Dog, because our audience caught up with you at Cave Dog, take us back to your beginning. Like what did you start in games and where did you start in games? Take us back.
Well, it's funny because I cleaned out my space. Like when I cleaned up my office when I finally sold gas powered games off to Wargaming, and I ended up leaving back in 2016. I had all this
Yeah.
stuff. It's sitting right here. So just check this out. I'm going to grab these couple of these
Okay.
boxes because
Awesome.
they're just right here. So I mean, shit.
So
Uh,
Chris Taylor is grabbing physical things that he has built over
I
the
mean,
years.
so so this is like, and I literally there's a test drive too. So this was the first game that I worked on as the lead engineer and primary designer on it. It's called Hardball II. You can see
Cool.
that here. It
Yeah.
had that. You go into the store and you pick up the box and you'd look at the screenshots and you'd read the little captions. You'd be like, purchase decision, yes, no.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this was the good old days, eh? And I'm even speaking, I'm speaking Canadian now because my brain has shifted back to 1989. Uh, here's something I was excited about. Best sports
Was that
program was
Accolade that I see on the front
that
box there?
it is. It's Accolade right
Accolade.
there. Right in
Amazing.
the right into the baseball, which was probably a new treatment for them. Once
So
I
wait a
finished,
second. So they had a Canadian development team, or did you have your own company up here? Or how did
well,
how did it all work?
I'm skipping so many details because I could we could literally talk for like 5 hours because we're
Yeah,
talking about a lifetime here,
I
right?
know. I know.
So when I started, okay, I was born in Surrey, and there was a little computer game company called Distinctive Software in
Oh, great.
Burnaby, founded by
Yes.
Don Matrick, right?
Right.
And I think Distinctive Software has got to be on this box somewhere. Otherwise, that's kind of weird that they got completely he didn't get any
Shut out on
brand,
the logo.
any shout out on the logo.
So you
But
worked with Ian Verschere
I did. He came
and Don
along
Matrick.
in this,
Okay.
and there was all these all these folks that you've come to know and love over the years that
Yep.
that was started at this little studio in Burnaby. So there was I was the 16th person on, so I was number 16,
Wow.
and it was 88 and in 1988, and so I was 20. I was technically 21 when I
Hmm.
started, so of course I didn't know anything. I just got in a bar fight, like literally I well, I call it a bar fight. It was road rage fight. I was 21. We were out cruising around. I got the job and I didn't start until Monday. So when I showed up to work on Monday, I had a black eye
Oh God.
from a brawl because I'm a Surrey guy, right?
Oh my
And these
God.
guys are talking shit. And I'm like, let's go. Wham, wham. So I went to work with a black eye.
For those that
Donuts.
don't know, especially in the 80s and 90s, Surrey is a suburb of Vancouver, British Columbia, which is where I'm based, where EP was born, and it has a rough and tumble association. There's some that have talked about Surrey having a little bit of a rough background, and so that Chris Taylor grew up in that kind of environment a little bit.
You didn't talk your way out of an argument. Let's just put it that way. You used
That's
your
funny.
hands and your body in an argument. Okay. So I joined this company and they assigned me Hardball II, which I think is great because it was
Yeah.
the furthest thing from what I had envisioned. But everything I learned doing this, physics of balls flying through the air and bouncing and
Yes.
friction and collision
Yes.
detection was all rolled into Total Annihilation. Total Annihilation was born in this game, Hardball 2.
I
The
was just
next
playing
game,
MLB The Show 24, the newest one from Sony, and it really did strike me just how beautiful the game design of baseball is and how beautifully it translates to video games. It's been this permanently positioned piece of escapism with games all the way along through the whole history of video games. And it's a perfect game to translate for video games for anyone because there's so much strategy. There's a little bit of action that happens in a moment, and there's that psychological mini game that happens between the pitcher and the batter, even if you're playing against the computer. It really has stood the test of time, and there have been some amazing baseball games over the years.
yeah, it's true. But at the time, of course, I was like, baseball,
Yeah.
like I'm Canadian. We don't really
Yeah.
play baseball, although I was on a little league baseball game, and I went in rubber boots. Okay.
That's
And
great.
I said to my mother, why would you ever let me go to play baseball? All the other kids have whatever, the appropriate footwear. And I'm wearing
Yeah.
rubber. She goes, you refuse to go unless you were wearing your rubber boots. And I was like,
Oh, that's
oh,
so funny.
mother, please
That
don't.
sounds like you.
Let's rewrite history on that one. Can we do that? So, so the next game was 40 Sports Boxing, and this
Right
is
on.
a great collaboration. You mentioned earlier, you talked about the people all coming together, the collaboration of bringing your show. This is
Yeah.
so true of all the games I've worked on. The
Yeah.
Hardball 2 was Rick Friesen on the libraries, Tony on the art, and Chris Hatlellet on the was it Chris Hatlellet on the musical score, I think. Oh my God, it's actually really, I should go through the credits. But
Yeah.
this was me and Jay McDonald, Don, and oh gosh, I'm forgetting.
It's
came
a
up
long time ago.
came up with this concept. I'll remember him if I took a minute to think. But
Yep.
the idea that you would have three-dimensional boxers that were
Wicked.
polyfilled before there was hardware accelerated graphics, before there was motion capture. This is arguably one of the first actual commercial products to use motion capture. Okay,
Wild.
Jay McDonald came up with this thing. Dave, the names. I
Yeah.
apologize to all the guys
No,
in
I'm right there with you, pal. It's hard to go back sometimes.
and the you guys remember Much Music was the Canadian version of MTV, and the Money
Yeah.
for Nothing by Dire Straits video was playing constantly because
Right, right,
three-dimensional characters
right.
were like never seen before. Never seen before. So some of our characters might have a little bit of an homage to the
That's
Money for
awesome.
Nothing characters from the video.
That's awesome.
And of course, that game, this was done initially with Broderbund or
Right?
Broderbund, and then there
Yeah.
was the sale of Distinctive Software to Electronic Arts right
Yeah.
in the middle. So what they did was Broderbund agreed to sell this in progress game to Electronic Arts. So it finally did come out under the Electronic Arts. Where's the hell's there it is at the bottom in red. The
Ah,
Electronic
wow.
Arts
So
under the
is that the
Electronic Arts
first
brand.
distinctive software EA game that you just held up there? Probably is.
There might have
Or
been
one of the
others
early ones.
in this. Yeah, definitely one of the earliest ones, right? Because
Right.
and I'd actually there's a bit of a shit throwing around the archival a bit. The there was there was a little bit of a kerfuffle. There's lots of kerfuffles. There's lots of legal stuff. I left the company and I went away for a while, and I worked with one of Don's co-founders for a while, and then came back. And because I was just, I was young and foolish and I wanted to explore, and I stayed with the company, ended up being for 8 years.
Yep.
The next game was, there was some stuff I did. I'm going to show you stuff that no one has ever seen or heard
Oh, this is great.
before. The, the management, the management thought I might be a manager guy. Like I might have skills to manage people.
Right.
So I worked with Jan Tian, the gentleman who ended up creating FIFA Soccer, wrote
Yep.
80-90% of the code for that game. And I worked with him on these Disney products and
Amazing.
ABCs, one, two, threes.
And this was still at Distinctive, or was this EA Canada at that point?
I believe this was EA at the time, but they had these, I think they had contracts with these
Yes.
companies they had to wrap up. See, Distinctive Software would work
Right.
with anyone,
Right.
right? To get
Yes.
stuff
Yes.
built. So I went into a stint as a manager, and and I tell you what, these guys did all the work. I just
Yeah.
was like, hey, how's it going? They're
Yeah.
like, cool, we're working on some problems. I'm like, then keep rocking that, okay?
Let me go get you guys a coffee.
I kind of phoned it in on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's no one's ever heard or seen of that ever. So
That's amazing.
a thing.
So those games did never actually come out, those
They
Disney
did.
ones.
They
Oh, they
shipped.
did.
They shipped.
Okay.
Yeah. Ted
Wild.
Silka, Jan Tian worked on those games, and
That's great.
Daniel Tay, I think, if I
Yep. Yep.
remember.
See, I think what people don't really quite understand, because Distinctive Software ended up becoming Electronic Arts Canada. Don sold
Correct.
to EA.
Correct.
But what you guys did, because you worked on all of these different games, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my thinking is that what you guys did is you kind of evolved the idea of a studio model. You brought all of this talent in-house, and you could work on any type of game, and you were able to, be super efficient and quick and roll onto project after project. I think that idea and that model became incredibly influential across the whole video game industry. And lots of people tried to replicate that kind of level of production. And it's hard. But the Canadian sensibility and that sort of I think it's applicable to our Canadian film units and stuff like that in Vancouver as well. Like there's just this ability to pull together tight deadlines, tight budgets, make it happen, and collaborate and push through. And it was so influential and so many big games, Triple Play and Need for Speed and Road Rash and FIFA and like all of these huge brands. And I know that Canadian game players don't quite understand or grapple with how prolific and important that whole era of Electronic Arts is. And you were right there, right at the very beginning of all of that.
Yes, and it dovetails into this whole area, which is fascinating. We could do an hour on it all by itself of the reverse engineering that went on
For
of the
sure.
Sega Genesis cartridge. But
Right.
EA had a proper license, and so EA bought a studio that was working with another company, Accolade, that had done reverse engineering. So I actually had to go to a clean room and work away from the rest of the studio for 10 months or so to build a version of Test Drive called Test Drive 2 The Duel, which I have right here. So in case
Wild.
I just happen, I swear to God, this is not a setup. I
That,
just happen to have this box. I'm going to be
that's
putting it
awesome.
away. This is Test Drive 2 The Duel, worked on in the studio. And again, I don't think I talk about this very much. Wrote all the 68,000 code for the sprite rendering engine here. So for
Wow.
those of you
What
watching for
version is that? Is that
assembly,
the Genesis version?
this is the Genesis version of Test Drive 2 The
Great.
Duel.
Amazing.
So that
Amazing.
was that. And then we came back and FIFA, this phenomenon called FIFA,
Yeah.
and FIFA soccer, and Jan Tien, who came off of like doing tennis and Follow the Reader, I believe, if I'm remembering all this, they're working on soccer, and we're all like, soccer's okay, but
Yeah.
soccer wasn't really done well, and then on
Yeah.
the Sega Genesis with that janky ass. I mean, this remote controller 30 years later hasn't done any better than the Sega Genesis, right? In terms of the shitty four-way controller.
Yeah.
And there was Bruce and God, they're gonna kill me if they watch this because they're gonna be like, "How come you're not remembering me?" Brian Plank, all these guys are so passionate. I mean, you think I've got a lot of energy. These guys
Yeah.
were like locked on soccer, and I'm watching it, and that's very interesting. Then it goes out and becomes this massive hit, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, we need a baseball game that fits the same design aesthetic, if you will.
Yes.
The
Yes.
character design, the art style, and it's going to be it's going to fit into the series, and that's Triple Play. And they
That's
wanted me to
great.
do it because, of course, a Hardball II.
Yeah.
And instead of sitting down going, like, how do I do baseball from first principles? I knew exactly what to do, how Stats Engine would work, because Stats was a huge, huge part of baseball. We did that, and I think it did really well. Well, it says here, according to Electronic Gaming Monthly, on the front, take this with a grain of salt. It was the #1 baseball game. Whee!
That's awesome.
Yay! Yay!
What a trip to be right because it was FIFA and Triple Play, it was Madden, it was NHL, the college games were all being made
Right.
there, NBA Live was all being made there. You were right in the thick of EA determining itself as a game company because like and it's all credit to EA Canada, like EA Vancouver and EA Canada. And Need for Speed and all of these licenses, all of these different sports relationships made EA the company that it is. There's
Yeah.
no question about it. They've had other hits in lots of cool directions, but it was those sports games and those people, those teams that, it's in the game that defined the whole that became video games for so many people. It was crazy.
You just did it. You just did it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
do it. I'm gonna do it one more time. EA Sports. It's in the game.
that's
Okay,
great.
like
Brilliant.
that was the coolest moment to be sitting home watching an ad come on TV, and you're like, that's all my shit right there. That's that
Yeah,
part
I
of that
bet.
whole
Yes.
family of
Yes.
things. And don't forget, just for those people who are lawyers watching
Yeah.
this, it was EASN
You're right.
before. It had a short-lived stint as the EA
Yes.
Sports Network before Disney, who owned ESPN, sent a kind little cease and desist letter and said,
Yeah.
please don't use EASN. That's infringement. And it was. And they
Yeah.
came up with EA Sports, which was arguably way superior in terms of
Yes.
its marketability, its brand identity. Everything about EA Sports was superior, right down to the voice. It's in the
Yeah.
game, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful.
people dismiss sports games. I think there's like two camps. There's a lot of people today that are kind of pissed about sports video games because they're not quite as accurate to the actual sport that they love as they want them to be. And then there's a lot of like the hardcore gamers out there that love to play action adventures and role-playing games, and they just think sports games, they just press a button and it's a roster update and they come out. I don't think people understand how much sports games did, how much heavy lifting sports video games did to bring people to video games. They
Mhm.
open the door for a lot of people sitting on the couch watching these things on TV, and then these commercials would come up and they'd go, "Holy shit, I can buy a Genesis and play this thing that looks like the sport." And then, obviously that got better and better as 3D came in, but they could
Yeah,
play
yeah,
these experiences at home with their friends. And once they got that little taste, I mean, I saw that firsthand. I'm sure you did too with friends around us. You give them a little, you hand the controller in NHL and you see somebody's eyes light up that had never played a
oh yeah,
video game before and
oh
they're
yeah.
in. And I have so much respect. I know how hard those games are to make too in that sort of limited time frame, and they've never gotten easier because there needs to be one every new
Oh,
season, and the
yeah.
technology and the amount of stuff in these things is insane, and they have to happen so freaking quickly. Was that one thing I remember about going to EA Canada and interviewing people back then, because I was kind of the beginning of EP as well. EA, actually, Don Matrick and Paul Lee. When I first met Paul Lee at EA Canada, he offered me a job at EA. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not here to, I'm not, I don't want to work here. I'm trying to make a TV show about the video game industry. I want to interview your developers and all that.
Oh, he's hiring
And,
everybody.
Oh, it was
He's
great,
hiring
man.
everybody.
But I love that attitude. It's like, yeah, you want to hire
Yeah,
people that are passionate about this stuff, and I
yeah.
totally got that. But Don was in our first demo. He was playing NBA Live with Stu Jackson, who was the head
Mhm.
of the Vancouver Grizzlies at the time, and so he
Okay, yeah.
generously gave up a lot of time. But I remember going to EA Canada and interviewing people about sports games back then, and one thing that just knocked my socks off is that so much work that had gone into this year's game would be just fully scrubbed as they
Mm.
would roll on to the next game. And I'm like, but you have all of the players all rendered and animated and all that. And it's like, no, no, we want to make it all new. We want to feel like everything is all fresh. I don't know how true that is, but that blew my mind back then.
There are elements, I think, as an engineer, from an engineering viewpoint, there are elements that are less true as an engineer, but more true from a producer who's
Mm,
creating, like, the technology, the S curve of technology. We were in the bottom of the S, and that
yeah,
meant once you got into that vertical part of the S, it's kind of a skewed S.
yeah,
Things were changing year to year at a
right,
phenomenal rate. And if
right,
people saw graphics that looked like they were 12, 24 months old,
yeah,
it was no good, right?
yeah,
Now we're kind of at the top of that S curve where things have settled out, where you'd be hard pressed to, when you buy a new sports game, you're buying it for the roster, you're buying it for the names, you're buying it for the things that are happening that are really not technology based, right?
yeah.
It's
There might be a
it,
mode in there, but they can't really, yeah, in a console generation now, you can't make things look more real. They almost look real. It feels like every generation of console, it's like we get a little closer to photoreal. It's going to be weird when the games look better than the stuff we're watching. And when
yeah,
we're going to get there.
yeah, and that's the top of that S curve is what we're talking about. But we're
Yeah.
seeing some new S curves emerge with AI, with
Yeah.
the way AI can take an image that's a low res image and make it a high res image.
Right.
I mean, what if you took the original FIFA soccer and put it through a real time AI engine to make
Whoa.
it a real soccer
Video.
game with
Yeah.
with real characters with your shitty
Oh,
Sega
dude.
Genesis controller,
Oh
right?
my.
That's going to happen,
I know. Holy crap. And
right?
that's the thing. It will be sports games that do it first because they always have. They always have. There's already a built-in audience. They want that. And the investment to try to get there will come from sports. That's why I have mad respect for sports games. I mean, I find them fun. I am not a diehard for any one of these that I can play all the time. My favorite sport is basketball, but I can't. I play everything and I review all kinds of stuff and talk to everybody. So, but every time I jump into sports games, I'm like, holy shit! Look at how much work has gone into this. This is amazing. So you
Right.
did your time as a sports game guy. at EA, but you also jumped around. And what was after that for you?
Well, I'm looking for the box. I'm looking
This
for
is
it.
great. He has physical props.
Oh, oh, I
This might
found
be
it.
a first on Vic Spacer where he actually, I
I
made
have,
this. That's
I
great.
have. I'm sorry, I'm yelling in the background. I have this in shrink wrap, but one was
Yeah.
open. This is called Virtual Stadium Baseball for the
Yeah.
3DO. Remember the
3DO, man.
3DO?
Yeah,
Okay,
man.
quick history lesson. So Trip Hawkins, founder of Electronic Arts,
Yep.
leaves to make greater successes for himself, founding a company who's going to own the console, own the hardware, right?
Yeah.
EA built
Yep.
for other hardware. So he creates
Yep.
this company called 3DO. And I remember him coming to our office, and this is before he technically had left his role as CEO and founder. He said, video game consoles, he's referring to Sega, he's referring to, whatever, Nintendo. He's saying it's
Yep.
like a little tricycle. I literally, this is a paraphrase, right, from Trip Hawkins, right? This little tricycle is pulling a semi tractor trailer load of content, right? It's trying to pull it, and it's
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
getting her done, eh? We're gonna
Yep.
put a tractor, a big powerful engine in front of this thing, and we're gonna
Mm.
really be able to do some amazing shit. So he comes up with 3DO. Turned out it was more like a moped.
Yeah.
Okay. Turns out it
Making consoles is hard.
it didn't turn out to have that big engine that we were that Cummins, 10 cylinder or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but anyways, they turned to me and they said, after the smoke cleared, the console launched. It didn't get picked up in America, but it got some traction in Japan. And
Okay.
Japanese is the other place on the earth where baseball is kind of a thing. You
Yep.
know, they play baseball there. No, I didn't know this. And they turned to me and they said, "Listen, can get triple play baseball, and can you take the core engine and give it a facelift, graphics facelift, and do a version? We're going to call it vir- virtual stadium baseball." And
Cool.
I worked on this. It probably took I don't know, maybe a year. Oh, there's a little 3DO logo in the corner, and
Nice.
and we did it. And I was sufficiently exhausted from doing baseball games.
Yeah, man,
When I
right.
finished this, I used to tell people, this is really tongue in cheek. I used to say, 3 strikes and you're out. Like,
Yeah.
no more baseball. I had it. I'd had it with baseball, but it's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're making movies or writing books or whatever, you need a change from the curriculum or the
Yes.
subject matter.
Yep.
I was hungry for doing something with more explosions.
Yeah.
And this had been a time where I was working on the baseball and Dune 2 from Westwood Studios. Remember, we were talking before how
Yeah.
weird here we are. Dune 2, the movie, is making a
Dune is
huge
popular again.
splash.
Yes.
I mean, and Dune 2, right? As a film, as an epic
Right.
film. And and
Yes.
back
Yeah.
and back in 1990 something, the game Dune 2, from weird because there was no Dune 1, best I could ever
Yeah.
tell, which
Yeah.
is, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Um, the It was a great game, and then I waited like on the doorstep for Command and Conquer, and it came
Yeah.
out, and I was working on Virtual Stadium Baseball, and I was like, I gotta go make an RTS game. I mean, you want to talk about Call of the Wild?
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
was it. This was
Yeah.
Call of the Wild, right? So Ron Gilbert and I got to talking through Shelley Day, who's the producer of Hardball II.
Yeah.
They ended up meeting one another at Lucas Arts, and then formed Humongous Entertainment. So I
Right.
reach out to Shelley. She says, "Well, how about if you move down, join Humongous?" Ron has this vision of growing into what we called non-children. We actually jokingly called it adult games. Have
Yeah.
you ever heard that? Like, people are like, "I'm sorry, what?" And we're like, "No, games for adults." It was like it was an early clickbait, is what that was. That was
Yeah,
clickbait
for
before
sure.
clickbait was invented. I make
Yeah.
adult games. So this is the adult game we made. We made Total Annihilation. And what a collaboration. To talk about collaboration. I was the lucky guy. I'll just come right out of the closet in this. I was the lucky guy to have my name on the box. But this, over the years, this is a sweetness that has turned sour. Okay,
Mm,
because it points too much attention to me and not on
right.
the other 29 people. that
Right.
worked on it. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah. Yep.
At first you're young and you're like, yay me, I've got this idea and I've got all this energy. But at the end of the day, when you look back, you realize this was such a team effort.
Yep.
A shout out to all the guys on the team who
Yep.
I'm hoping have nothing but good memories. But this is
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? I feel somewhat similar with Electric Playground as well. Like it came out of my brain, but it took a whole army of people to build it, and it wouldn't be where it was. It wouldn't have everybody was so freaking great. Marcy, my wife, as well. Like she supported me the whole damn way with this crazy idea that this thing could happen, um, and you're absolutely right. On the flip, though, as a guy that follows the business and talks to people, like what I want is people to be aware of game development. It has been my life's work, for people to pay
Mhm.
attention to the artists and the creative people and the passion and the thinking. And like I said, you on the first episode of EP was such a defining moment for what the show could be right from out of the gate. And there is a lot of value in presenting the people of the industry. And I think the lifers, the people that love that collaboration and love the potential for games and where this can all go when you work together are smart enough to recognize that spotlight on a person helps the whole thing too. I know it can sting and I know it can muddy things up and it can create tension in a team, but we need
Well,
to know who these people are. I know that Game Gods PC gamer cover was probably doing a
I
lot
know,
of
right?
damage.
Right. We have a word for that, which I will not even say on the super liberal medium that we have today. I won't
Yeah,
say the
right.
word, but it has a connotation. So what the thing and thanks to Gary for doing that, by the way. It was at
Yeah,
the time it was I had more fun meeting the guys, meeting Sid Meier and
for
all the
sure.
folks that showed up on the shoot, you know?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but to your point, rolling back a little bit on the team, we took a cue in fairness from Hollywood, right?
Yep,
Starring
yep,
this person, directed by this person. I mean, if I asked you, who directed Dune to the movie just now, you may know that director now. But if I
yep,
asked you to name who the director of photography was, or who did
yeah.
casting, or any of the other key roles, costume, set design, lighting,
Right,
the
right.
hardworking electricians and other folks, you're never going to
It
say those
falls
names.
off.
It falls
Yes.
off real fast.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
you can't keep that many names. So we get it. We put a little asterisk. We get it. But remember to shout out to the team every
yep,
time you possibly can.
yep.
Shine that light back onto the team. That's where the light should go.
Yeah, and anybody that's listening to this, I think it's all, I consider people that go out of their way to find information like this to be evangelists for this medium as well. And it's up to you in your circles to repeat that philosophy out, and recognize that it's a collaboration. Like the games are incredible that we get to play, but the story of those games are the people that made them. The teams that were somehow collected. We just got the Saboteur was just re-released on PC, and it reminds me of just how incredible Pandemic was as a game company. They just came out with banger after banger, and it's because of the people. It's because of however those guys, Josh and all the sort of heads of that company, they assembled just amazing people. It's always the humans. It's not the brand. You helped
Yeah.
me understand that too. I remember I visited Gas Power, we're jumping all over the place, but we visited Gas Power, and there was, I don't know, some bill came in for equipment that you had to buy for team members, and and it was expensive. And somehow we got talking about how expensive this new this new workstation PC that you brought in for maybe a new employee or something. And I said, "Holy crap! Do you buy those expensive rigs for everybody? That must cost a fortune." She said, and you said, "Nah, that's nothing. That's just running the business. The overhead is making sure that the people are happy." And that's the truth, man. Like a company is the people, and you want to make sure that they're happy. It's not the gear that they play with, it's not the toys that they have, it's that they are taken care of. Okay, well, Total Annihilation came out, and rightly
Yeah.
or wrongly, it put you on the map, made you a game god, and then you got to work on Dungeon Siege games. And oh, he's got all the props. It's amazing.
I know, I know. This one, well, I had the box. I had the box. Like,
Yeah.
if you ever were in my office, kind of like the way yours is, imagine you
Yeah.
took all those action figures and those arcade minicades or whatever, and you just shoved them all in a box,
And they're
right?
all right there. Yeah.
That's what I've got right here. Okay, so this was Dungeon Siege.
So
Yeah,
Total Annihilation allowed you to create your own studio with gas powered. Am I right?
yes, yes, that's a really great story all by itself. People knew my name. They knew I was starting a studio. I talked to Activision. I talked to Sierra, Scott Lynch, who was we most of the people in the industry know ended up joining up with Gabe and becoming a big part of Valve's success. There was Microsoft and there was EA.
Right.
And I ended up going with Microsoft, partly for selfish reasons that they were down the street.
For sure.
But the bigger reason that was like a little cherry. The bigger reason was Ed Freeze. So Ed
Right.
Freeze called me personally when I had ironically tried to say that I'm having a hard time deciding and that I may not be going with Microsoft. I'm getting a lot of offers. He picked up the phone immediately when his biz dev guy, John Kimmick, told him that there was a question mark, picked up the phone and he called me and I'm like, hello, this is my house. And I go, hello. And he goes, this is Ed Freeze at Microsoft. And he told me, he says, we're really taking this thing to the next level. We're going to build a big thing here at Microsoft, blah, da, 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 da. I go, Ed, I'm sold. I'm doing the game with Microsoft. That was the phone
Because of
call.
you. Yeah.
Right on that phone call, I decided to go because of Ed.
Ed's amazing. Incredible guy. What a visionary and what a human connector too. He actually connected me with the G4 network, which is kind of crazy for me in my career. So he's an influential person in both of our lives. So
Yeah, yeah.
gas powered games. You're lucky enough to make 3 Dungeon Siege games under gas powered.
It was actually two Dungeon Siege games, Dungeon Siege
Yeah.
1 and 2. There was a Legends
Yep.
of Arana expansion that was done by Mad Doc. There was Supervillain Games did a PSP version, and then the
Right.
third
Yeah.
one ended up coming out of Obsidian, which was for consoles and PC, and got spread a little. The peanut butter got spread a little thin on Dungeon Siege 3. That's
Yeah.
what we're calling that. Okay,
Yeah.
that's how we're characterizing what happened. If you talk to Fergus, he'll probably endorse that opinion 100%. The peanut butter, God, you're like eating the bread and you're like, I don't even know if I can taste the peanut butter. Okay.
It must be pretty cool though to see another team play in the playground that you built, even if it's not exactly what you hoped or thought it would be. It must be pretty cool to see somebody else interpret it and take it.
Well, you know what? Okay. This is maybe too hot for TV, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna find it here. I'm gonna find it, and you want to talk about cool? Here we go. Are you
yeah,
ready for this big
I'm
reveal?
ready.
Real
Yep.
Jason Statham in
Yeah.
Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege Tale. Okay, this
The Uwe Boll.
this sums it up. This sums it up. This is it. This is it. This drop the mic. Right, doing a movie. Question mark director. Question
Yeah.
mark filmmaker.
Yes.
Big budget. Big stars going to the movies and sitting in this and seeing Burt Reynolds, like
Oh my God.
King
That's right.
Connery, Burt Reynolds, King Connery, Jason Statham, Ray
Right.
Liotta as the
Oh
bad
my God.
guy. Like my brain exploded, and then of course, I'm sitting through the movie going, waiting for my name to come up the screen, right? Like that
Yeah.
was sort of like a just a pure light yourself on fire ego moment.
Totally.
Just
Oh my
self
God, my
immolate,
friend.
going. But again, team, like
Surreal.
you got to do all that. But the fact is, this guy, I mean, my ex-wife now,
Yeah.
God bless her, had a crush on this guy, and then she's getting her picture taken with him, right?
Oh,
And
that's great.
she looked the way I look getting my picture beside Nolan Bushnell, okay?
Yeah.
Just for equivalency, like for
Yeah.
like.
That's crazy.
It's a
Okay,
great,
and so
yeah.
take us from gas powered to wargaming because you worked at wargaming for
Yeah.
quite a while. Are you still there or you're not there anymore?
No, I left in 2016.
Yep.
You know, to be fair, these guys were they were a great bunch. They bought the studio in a market lull for me. I was tired. It was 15 years.
Yep.
I'm proud to say I never missed a payroll
Right
as
on,
the
bro.
head of that company in 15 years.
Yep.
I never got into a
People
lawsuit.
have no idea how hard that is.
Oh, driving home, no money in the
Yep.
bank, figuring out how to make payroll, hustling, putting deals
Yep.
together. And payroll is not trivial. $250,000, every two
Yep.
weeks,
Yep.
stuff like that. Laying off, having people really, I hate to say this, but really hate your guts
Yep.
as a leader of a company because you laid them off because you had to save the rest of the kids on the bus. You know what I mean? Like you
Hmm.
can't save them all, and that whole romantic notion of we're all burning and going together is great on theory, but you have to make hard decisions when running a company, and that still stings. But never missed a payroll. Was able to let people off board, get a little bit of money, get paid out their vacation, do it all up proper, and
Yeah.
then keep the company running to see
Yeah.
the company come back and hard times, 15 years. But when I went to Wargaming, it was sort of like crossing a desert with, drips of water and then getting to an oasis where the company had the resources to, we tore out our whole IT closet and rebuilt every server with state of the art, tech. And it was wonderful. And we did that for 3.5 years. And then things shifted around, and then I decided it was time for me to leave and head off on a new adventure, which was taking a break for
Yeah.
literally another 3.5 years of
Yep.
literally, how people, they work their whole lives and they retire and
Yeah.
then they're old and they have money. That's the
Right.
that's the
Yes.
trick, right? Oh, I've
Yep.
got money now.
Yep.
I'm gonna go to Venice. I'm gonna travel the world. I'm gonna kiss the Blarney Stone or whatever it is, right? They got this little list. And I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take 3.5 years off, kind of in the middle, sort of ish.
Yeah.
Okay. I was 50.
Yep.
That's the middle, right? I'm
Mm.
optimistic. I'm gonna take some time off in the middle, and then you can't take it away from me. So I took 3.5 years. And yeah, it's hard to do. I went through divorce. You know me, I'm pretty open about this stuff. And then I learned enterprise cloud. I went on a bender. I'm talking a complete bender. And I went and I learned enterprise cloud because everything is on the cloud.
Everything. Yes.
Everything,
Yes.
right? Look at Amazon. I mean, Jeff Bezos, his fortunes are built, and he built the cloud. I mean, Amazon Web
Yep.
Services is the first sort of externally facing cloud provider.
They're behind everything. People have no idea. Like everybody uses their services. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's you can
Yep.
reach the world, you can build things, so there's a fast follow, obviously, by Microsoft to build Azure, by Google to build GCP, Google Cloud, and that world just seemed like that's the future, and
Yep.
gaming is eventually going to end up there. It's not.
Agreed.
It's sort of like there's this where we got a foot in both places right now
Yes.
with consoles
Yes.
and PCs and all that, but it's all going to end up there eventually. It's just going to take
Well,
time.
I think it's going to be a huge chunk of the future. And then there's going to be a huge chunk of people that determine that they still want to hold on to their physical collections. There's always going to be people that listen to their records, but there's going to be a huge chunk of the new idea of the video game industry that is embracing this idea of serving it all up to you through the cloud.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
you're right. There's a real like look at me. I'm
Yeah.
showing you physical. Imagine if I didn't have physical things to hold. The
Yeah.
story isn't as fun to tell, right?
Yeah. It's true.
It's a real challenge, but I'm not making it go to the cloud. I'm just trying to go where what Gretzky, the great
Yeah.
Gretzky quote, skate to where
Yeah.
the puck is going,
Yeah.
you know?
So what's your business now then? What do you have a new company or are you working for somebody? What are you
Yeah.
doing these days?
I literally work in the media industry. I work in
Yeah.
television and
Yeah.
broadcast and the cloud, the digital group in Seattle out of the Como building right beside the Space Needle. So that's where I am at one day a week. I'm at Como 4.
Are you
And I
kidding me?
no,
That's
no,
amazing. You're working in the television industry, but for 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 the cloud.
yes, yeah.
You're thinking
So
of the digital delivery of television through the cloud at Como.
Yeah, and in fact, we do
Wow.
that. But
Yeah.
this thing here used to be on from 6 in the morning till 2 in the morning. Like it
Yeah.
used to be on all day long, and now it's black. Every one of
Right.
these things in everyone's houses all over the world is off.
Right. All that's unless we're playing games
All,
on them.
unless it's games or Netflix or Disney Plus or what have you, Apple
Yeah.
TV. It's off.
I
So one
can't
of my
believe you're in the
challenge,
television industry. This is blowing my freaking mind.
yeah. So my challenge is to bring that back and bring it back with some entertainment. That's my day job, and then my weekends and evenings are filled with something called Kanugi, Kanoogi, Kanugi.com. You can go there. I blog. I have my vision laid out for what I'm going to do in gaming. It's my own thing. I haven't got funding because I don't want somebody with money telling me what to do. And I'm
Right.
just having fun. It's a hobby. It's all explained on the site, Kanugi.com. And
That's awesome.
that's my story. I think we landed it right on because I'm getting called to my next meeting here in a minute. Isn't that funny?
Well, brother, it is good to see you. Thank you so much for a lifetime of support for what we do and for being on EP this many years. And I've got to come back to Seattle and visit you in person, and we'll do this again. Just hanging out, which would be incredible. But congrats on the many twists and turns, and keep it going, man. It's fantastic.
Thank you. It was really great, really fun. Again, we could talk for hours.
Absolutely.
More.
We're just getting
Hours
started.
more. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're the best.
All
Chris
right.
Taylor
Thanks,
joins
man.
me on the Vic's Basement podcast. Thank you, my friend. We will see you soon. Thank you for watching and listening. Make sure you're keeping up on the classic episodes of EP. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.